Jonah Vale was elbow-deep in a sewage reclamation pump when the royal invitation arrived. He did not see the silver courier descend through Bellwether Colony's dusty atmosphere. He did not hear the bells in the administrative tower or the emergency announcement ordering every citizen to clear the central landing square. He missed the royal herald stepping from the ship in mirrored armor, accompanied by 6 ceremonial guards and a floating standard bearing the golden sunburst of Vealora. Jonah was beneath Greenhouse 6, lying on his back in 6 centimeters of gray water, attempting to convince a corroded pressure regulator not to rupture. "Stay together," he whispered. The regulator trembled. "You have one job." It ruptured. A jet of foul water struck Jonah across the face. By the time Administrator Celia Venn found him, he was soaked, furious, and threatening the regulator with a wrench. "Jonah," she said. He wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve. "If this is about the tomatoes, Director Pell was warned that the western nutrient lines were unstable." "This is not about the tomatoes." "Then the fungal bloom?" "No, the drinking water filters." "Jonah." Something in her voice made him lower the wrench. Administrator Venn was not easily unsettled. She had governed Bellwether for 17 years, through 2 crop failures, reactor fire, and an attempted takeover by a mining consortium. She had once negotiated with armed smugglers while holding nothing more dangerous than a scheduling tablet. Now she stood at the entrance to the pump chamber, clutching a black case against her chest. Behind her crowded 3 council members, the port director, Jonah's supervisor, and 4 colony security officers. They were all staring at him. Jonah looked down at his stained work clothes. "Did someone die?" "No." "Am I under arrest?" "Not exactly." He sat up. There are very few comforting ways to finish that sentence. Administrator Venn entered the chamber and opened the case. Inside rested a thin plate of blue crystal. Golden letters moved beneath its surface like fish beneath water. At its center burned the crowned sun of the Valeran throne. Jonah knew the symbol. Everyone did. The Valeran Union governed 43 inhabited systems and held defense, trade, or transit agreements with nearly 200 more. Its fleets patrolled the Great Jump Corridors. Its banks stabilized interstellar currency. Its diplomats ended wars that smaller governments had spent generations beginning. At the center of it all sat Queen Seralin Aurelian IX, 26 years old, unmarried, and widely considered the most powerful woman in known space. Administrator Venn turned the crystal toward him. The words changed into standard human. "Jonah Elias Vale, citizen of Bellwether Colony by decree of the Crown and under the Articles of Continuance, you are hereby summoned as a candidate in the selection of the royal consort." For several seconds, Jonah heard only dripping water. Then he looked at Administrator Venn. No, Venn's mouth tightened. "That was also our initial response. It's a mistake. We assumed so. There must be another Jonah Vale. There are 18,000 registered citizens with that name. There. Send one of them. The summons includes your citizen number, genetic registry, educational record, and childhood identity scan." Jonah stared at the crystal again. A small image appeared beneath the words. It showed him at 13 years old, thin-faced and sunburned, squinting resentfully into a school camera. "That is disturbingly specific," he said. Councilman Arlo cleared his throat. "The Herald has verified the summons 6 times. Then the Herald is wrong 6 times. Royal heralds are not wrong. Everyone is wrong eventually." "Not about this." Jonah pushed himself to his feet. "I repair irrigation systems. I've never held public office. I have no military rank, no family connections, no money, and no formal clothes that aren't funeral clothes." "We are aware," Vince said. "I haven't left Bellwether in 9 years. We are aware of that as well. I don't even know how to dance. That may not be the most urgent problem." Jonah looked from face to face. No one appeared amused. "How many candidates are there?" 112, Vince said. "And who are they?" Councilman Arlo consulted his tablet. 14 planetary heirs. 47 princes or hereditary governors. 18 senior military commanders. 14 industrial magnates, 11 diplomats. 3 religious dignitaries, 2 renowned physicians, an opera star, the captain of the Valoran Celestial Games team, and someone described as the living sword of Karam. Jonah waited. And me. And you. Pump technician, second class. Senior maintenance coordinator, his supervisor corrected. I was promoted last month because Darius quit. No one answered. Jonah climbed from the pit. I decline. Every official in the room began talking at once. Administrator Vin silenced them with a raised hand. You cannot decline. The invitation says candidate, not prisoner. The articles of continuance state that a summoned candidate may refuse, but the refusal must be delivered personally to the Queen. Fine. I'll record a message. Personally means in her physical presence. Then I'll tell her when I get there and come home. Administrator Vin glanced at the council members. What? There are additional considerations, she said. Of course there are. Bellwether is behind on its union development loans. Jonah folded his arms. The Crown has never threatened us over those loans. No, but the interstellar attention created by your selection could attract investors, infrastructure grants, medical contracts. There it is. This colony has been overlooked for decades. So you want me to parade in front of the galaxy so Bellwether can sell advertising? We want you not to insult the ruler whose navy keeps raiders out of this system. I didn't ask her to invite me. No one knows why she invited you. Vin snapped. The force of her answer silenced the chamber. She took a breath and lowered her voice. The Herald does not know. The selection office does not know. The royal genealogists have found no connection between your family and any noble line. Intelligence has reviewed your life and found nothing of political relevance. That's reassuring. It should be. They looked very carefully. Jonah glanced again at the childhood photograph. A strange uneasiness passed through him. Has the Queen ever visited Bellwether? Never. Have I met her? Not according to any record. He studied the golden letters. The summons pulsed once. Waiting. Administrator Vin closed the case. You leave tomorrow. Jonah looked at her. Tomorrow. The first ceremony is in 12 days. The journey requires 9. I have work. His supervisor stepped forward. We'll manage. My apartment. Council staff will secure it. My mother's memorial trees need watering. I'll do it myself, Vin said. Jonah searched her expression for some sign that this was all an elaborate joke. He found none. Outside, beyond the greenhouse walls, a crowd had begun chanting his name. For the first time in his life, the entire colony knew who Jonah Vale was. He already hated it. The royal transport that was sent to collect Joha, the Crown Meridian, was larger than Bellwether Central District. The ship possessed gardens, theaters, artificial rivers, and a dining chamber whose ceiling displayed the current positions of every inhabited star system. Jonah's assigned suite had 6 rooms, 2 bathing chambers, and a bed large enough to accommodate a diplomatic delegation. During the 9-day journey to Vealora, etiquette instructors attempted to teach him the customs of the major galactic courts. He learned how to bow to a Talaran prince without implying a willingness to duel, how to accept wine from a Mazari without accidentally agreeing to a commercial merger, and why one must never compliment a Soren noble's teeth. He also learned that the 112 other candidates had spent years preparing for the selection. Several had undergone cosmetic gene therapy to improve compatibility with Valoran aesthetics. Others had studied the Queen's speeches, military decisions, favorite literature, and childhood biographies. One candidate had constructed an artificial moon as a courtship gift. Jonah had brought a change of clothes and a packet of dried apple slices. The selection dominated every public channel. Commentators analyzed the candidates' bloodlines, careers, physical symmetry, and diplomatic value. Gambling markets calculated their chances to the 4th decimal place. Jonah was placed last. His official odds were so poor that several networks listed him under other. When the Crown Meridian entered the Valoran system, Jonah stood alone at the observation window. Vealora Prime glowed beneath them. Blue oceans, silver cities, and vast green continents untouched by industry. A ring of orbital palaces circled the planet, connected by bridges of light. At the center of the system hung the Crown Citadel. It was not truly a building. It was a city suspended in space, shaped like a many-pointed star and surrounded by rotating gardens. Golden sails collected sunlight along its outer walls. Thousands of ships moved around it like sparks around flame. Jonah had never seen anything so beautiful or so expensive. First time, the voice came from behind him. Jonah turned. The man standing in the doorway was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in a dark military coat with a red sash. A thin scar crossed his mouth. Two swept-back horns rose from his temples, marking him as one of the karate. Jonah recognized him from the candidate briefings. Prince Kale of Karam, the Living Sword, commander of the 7th Fleet. Estimated chance of selection, 17%. Jonah moved aside. Is it obvious? You're looking at the Citadel instead of looking for cameras. Jonah glanced around. He found 5. Kale smiled faintly. They will edit that into something humiliating by morning. They've had plenty of material. You're Vale of Bellwether. That seems to be the rumor. Your inclusion has caused 6 diplomatic protests and 1 market correction. Kale joined him at the window. Up close, he appeared less like a legendary warrior and more like an exhausted man who had forgotten how to rest. Do you know why you were summoned? Kale asked. No, dear governors. No. Did you secretly rescue the queen from a burning ship? Not that I remember. Share an ancestor? My ancestors grew algae and complained about taxes. Kale studied him. Jonah had already learned that powerful people did not believe in accidents. To them, an unexplained event was merely a plan whose author had not yet been identified. I intend to refuse, Jonas said. Do you? Yes. Then you may be the most dangerous man here. Jonah laughed. Kale did not. The rest of us want something, the prince said. A treaty, a fleet, access to the crown, protection for our houses. You claim to want nothing. That makes your behavior difficult to predict. I want to go home. Exactly. The citadel grew larger outside the window. Kale lowered his voice. Be careful inside. Of what? Everyone. That narrows it down. The selection is presented as courtship. It is not. The royal consort becomes the second voice of the union. Jonah remembered the phrase from his lessons. A ceremonial advisor. Kale looked at him with something close to pity. Nothing in the crown is ceremonial. Before Jonah could ask more, the ship announced their arrival. The observation deck doors opened, admitting a procession of attendants and recording drones. Kale's expression changed instantly. His exhaustion vanished behind the serene face of a prince. Smile, Bellwether, he murmured. Jonah looked toward the cameras. I'd rather fight the living sword. So would I. The candidates entered the Hall of Worlds beneath banners from 100 civilizations. There were exactly 113 of them. They walked in order of rank. Planetary heirs came first, followed by princes, governors, commanders, ambassadors, scholars, artists, and wealthy citizens whose companies owned portions of inhabited moons. Jonah entered last. The herald announced him without inflection. Jonah Elias Vale, citizen of Bellwether Colony, maintenance coordinator, representative of No House. The hall went strangely quiet. Jonah walked beneath the gaze of 10,000 invited guests. At the far end of the chamber rose the solar throne. Queen Seralin sat beneath a canopy of living light. Jonah had seen her face 1,000 times in broadcasts, but those images had not prepared him for her presence. Valerans were close enough to humans in appearance that their shared ancestry was obvious. Their skin carried faint patterns of natural iridescence. Their eyes reflected light more sharply, and their hair often grew in metallic shades. Seralin's hair was pale gold. A delicate crown encircled her forehead, its points curving toward her temples. Fine silver markings traced her cheekbones and throat. She wore no jewels except the crown. The authority in her stillness was more intimidating than armor. Candidate after candidate approached the throne, bowed, and received a formal greeting. When Jonah's turn came, he stepped onto the circular platform. The queen looked down at him. For one impossible second, her composure seemed to break. Her eyes widened. Not much. Barely enough for him to notice. Then the expression disappeared. Jonah Elias Vale, she said. Her voice was calm, low, and familiar in a way he could not place. Your Majesty, you had traveled far. Yes. A pause followed. The hall waited. He remembered the greeting prepared by his etiquette instructors. Bellwether Colony rejoices beneath the light of your reign. He opened his mouth. What came out was, the ship was very comfortable. Somewhere behind him, a diplomat made a choking sound. The Queen's lips moved. It might have been the beginning of a smile. I am pleased, she said, that the Crown has met Bellwether's standards. Our standards are mostly about whether the air stays inside the ship. This time, she did smile. The entire hall reacted. Jonah heard whispers ripple through the audience. The Queen recovered quickly. I hope you will find your time here worthwhile. I'm sure it will be memorable. Her gaze held his. For an instant, Jonah felt as if she were waiting for him to say something else. A word. A name. He had no idea what it was. The herald signaled for him to move. Jonah bowed and stepped from the platform. As he passed the throne, the Queen spoke so quietly that he almost believed he imagined it. You still lean left when you're nervous. Jonah stopped. He looked back. Seralin had already turned toward the Chancellor. Her expression revealed nothing. The selection tests began at sunrise. The first test was diplomacy. Candidates were divided into groups and instructed to negotiate a fictional dispute between three moons competing for access to a failing water station. Jonah was placed with a planetary heir, a trade prince, 2 admirals, and a philosopher from the Soran Republic. Within 7 minutes, the planetary heir had threatened war. The trade prince had purchased the station. 1 admiral proposed blockading it. The other wished to destroy it so no faction could gain an advantage. The philosopher argued that water ownership was an illusion. Jonah read the technical specifications. The station doesn't need to be divided, he said. The others ignored him. He raised his voice. The station is failing because its filtration membranes are overloaded. If each moon processes its industrial waste before delivery, the station can support all 3 populations. The trade prince looked offended. That is not among the proposed solutions. It's in the maintenance appendix. There is a maintenance appendix? No one reads the maintenance appendix, said the planetary heir. That's usually why things break. The judges awarded Jonah's group the highest score. The trade prince took credit. The second test involved public conduct. Each candidate spent an afternoon in the capital under constant surveillance, while actors staged various emergencies. Jonah failed to identify 3 disguised nobles, addressed a duke as Sir, and spent 40 minutes helping an elderly woman repair the mobility system in her chair. She turned out to be a retired intelligence director. The third test was physical. Jonah completed half the aerial obstacle course before vomiting into a ceremonial fountain. By the end of the first week, 18 candidates had been dismissed. Jonah remained. No one could explain why. The Queen rarely spoke to him directly. During public events, she treated him with the same measured courtesy she offered everyone else. Yet Jonah often caught her watching him, not evaluating, remembering. It unsettled him more than open hostility would have. The other candidates noticed. Some attempted to befriend him. Others tried to buy him. A governor offered Bellwether 3 atmosphere processors if Jonah would publicly support his candidacy. An industrial heir promised Jonah a directorship with a salary larger than Bellwether's annual budget. A famous actor suggested they form a temporary romantic alliance because the public enjoys uncertainty. Jonah declined all 3. The threats began soon after. The first arrived as an anonymous message. Leave before you embarrass your world. The second contained images of Bellwether's water reservoirs and detailed estimates of how easily they might be contaminated. The third had no words. Only a photograph of Jonah at 13, standing beside a dark-haired girl outside Halcyon Middle School. The image had been partially corrupted. The girl's face was hidden by static. Jonah stared at it for a long time. He remembered her. Mira Sen. She had appeared midway through his 7th school year, quiet and angry, with a badly cut fringe and an accent no one could identify. She had remained at Halcyon for less than 5 months. They had become friends mostly because neither of them had any others. Mira was terrible at ordinary life. She did not know how to use a public food dispenser. She had never ridden a colony bus. She once tried to pay for lunch with a metal coin worth more than the school. Jonah had assumed she came from a wealthy but eccentric family. She claimed her parents moved constantly for diplomatic work. Then, one morning, she was gone. Her apartment had been emptied. Her school records disappeared. Messages sent to her address were returned unopened. Jonah had not seen her again. The photograph could not be connected to the selection. Mira had been human, or had looked human. The queen was Valerin. Their faces were nothing alike. Still, he took the image to palace security. An officer scanned it, frowned, and left the room without explanation. 2 hours later, Jonah was summoned to a private audience. Seralin received him in a garden sealed beneath a transparent dome. Vealora turned below them, blue and white and impossibly peaceful. The queen stood beside a narrow, reflecting pool. She had removed her crown, though the silver markings on her skin still glimmered in the sunlight. 2 guards waited at the garden entrance. "Show me the message," she said. Jonah handed her the tablet. She examined the photograph. The blood drained from her face. "You recognize it," Jonah said. Seralin dismissed the guards. They hesitated. That was not a request. The doors closed behind them. Jonah watched her. "Who is the girl?" The queen enlarged the photograph. "You truly don't know? Should I?" She looked up at him. There was pain in her expression now, but also something sharper. Disappointment. She touched the control at her wrist. The silver markings along her face faded. Her golden hair darkened, first to brown and then almost black. The subtle Valerin angle of her eyes softened beneath a projected alteration. Her posture changed as she lowered her shoulders and tilted her head. The queen vanished. Mira Sin stood in front of him. Older, taller, but unmistakable. Jonah forgot how to breathe. "No," he whispered. "Hello, Patch." The pet name struck him harder than the transformation. No one had called him that in years. Mira had invented it after Jonah patched up her broken school tablet with wires stripped from a classroom lamp. Yes. You were, yes. You told me your father inspected cargo stations. He commanded the Royal Intelligence Service. You said your mother was a civil servant. She was the queen." Jonah sat down on the edge of the reflecting pool. Seralin restored her appearance, though she did not replace the crown. "You disappeared. I was taken from the colony after my location was compromised. You could have sent a message. I tried. I waited for months. I know. You knew. I received reports." The words landed badly. "Reports. You were monitored for your safety." "My safety?" Anyone connected to the royal family could have become a target. "Your people watched me. For 3 years." Jonah stood again. The queen's expression remained controlled, but he could see the old Mira beneath it now. The girl who clenched her jaw when frightened, who stared at the floor when ashamed. Why was the future queen of Vealora in a middle school on a mining colony? There had been an attempt on my life. My mother no longer trusted the palace. Bellwether was considered insignificant enough to be safe. "Thank you. You know what I mean?" "Unfortunately." Seralin looked down at the damaged photograph. "The person who sent this knows about Halcyon. Is that unusual? Only 7 living people were supposed to know where I was hidden." Jonah's anger cooled. "How many of them are in the palace?" 5. "Do you trust them?" No, the answer came too quickly. He studied her. "Is that why I'm here?" Seralin walked to the edge of the dome. Below them, storms moved across Vealora's ocean. "The selection is not merely a marriage ceremony," she said. "Under the Articles of Continuance, the royal consort becomes the second key to the crown network. The queen controls domestic authority. The consort countersigns military and succession commands. Why give a stranger that power? To prevent a sovereign from becoming a tyrant. 2 independent minds must agree before the crown can launch its full fleets, dissolve the assembly, or alter the line of succession. And you must choose someone before the convergence in 19 days. What happens then? If I remain unmarried, the assembly selects the second key, and the assembly is controlled by people who wish to control me." Jonah finally understood why so many candidates had come. They were not competing for Seralin. They were competing for half the throne. "You chose the candidates?" Most were nominated by allied governments, noble houses, and assembly factions. But you chose me. Yes. Why? Her gaze met his. Because when I tried to think of a person in the galaxy who had known me without wanting anything from me, you were the only one. Jonah said nothing. You knew me when I had no title, she continued. You shared your lunch when I had forgotten how to purchase one. You lied to security officers when I panicked during an evacuation drill. You never asked why I knew things a child should not know. I thought you were strange. I was strange. You were unbearable. I have received similar assessments from several ambassadors. Despite himself, he almost smiled. Then he remembered the threats. You brought me here because you needed someone you could trust. Yes, not because you wanted a husband. Seralin's composure tightened. The two possibilities are not mutually exclusive. That is a very royal answer. It is the honest one. I could not risk explaining before you were safe inside the Citadel. You could have contacted me privately. All communications are monitored, even private channels are monitored. If I had reached out to you privately, you would probably have been kidnapped or worse. So instead you summoned me in front of the entire galaxy. The public acknowledgement put eyes on you. Those eyes have kept you safe to this point. I needed you here. You knew Bellwether would pressure me to come. Silence. That was answer enough. Jonah stepped back. You used my colony. I ensured Bellwether would receive the development grants whether you accepted or not. That isn't really the point. I know. Do you? The Queen looked suddenly very young. I had 19 days to place half the military authority of the Union into someone's hands, she said. Every person around me belongs to a house, a faction, a government, a corporation, or a faith. Then I remembered a boy who once crawled through a ventilation shaft because I had dropped a cheap silver bracelet behind a wall. It wasn't cheap, was it? You told me it belonged to your grandmother. No, it wasn't cheap. And yes, it had belonged to my grandmother, Queen Aurelian. Jonah closed his eyes. I used a piece of wire tied to a shoelace. The bracelet is displayed in the Royal Archive now. Of course it is. I'm sorry, Patch. I tried, but I didn't see another way out of this. He believed her. That made it worse. Did you expect me to recognize you? A part of me wanted you to. I'm sorry I didn't. So am I. The words hung between them. Jonah looked at the old photograph. Who sent this? Seralin's expression hardened. Someone who wants you frightened. It's working. They may also want me to believe that one of my inner circle betrayed me. Did one? I don't know. For the first time, Jonah saw the truth beneath all the deception and ceremony. The most powerful woman in the galaxy was surrounded by thousands of people and trusted none of them. The only person in the universe she felt she could trust was a pump technician, second class, from a remote colony she had not seen since middle school. It wasn't romantic. It was terrifying.